Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening based on the time and place you are joining us from today. SN Women and SN Parents India chapters welcome you today to today's session on a very interesting topic. Are screens the new pacifier? Work-life balance and parenting in the digital age. Before we begin, I would like to request all attendees to be on mute during the session. You can unmute yourself during the Q&A and can also share your questions via the chat box. I'm pleased to invite Nidhi Gulati, Communications Director, Springer Nature in India, and Global Co-Chair of SN Parents and Co-Chair of SN Women India, to host today's fireside chat with Dr. Anand Nadkarni. Dr. Nadkarni is a pioneer in the field of psychiatry and mental health. He is also a gifted writer, playwright, and a creative consultant. Dr. Nadkarni's multifaceted talents have earned him numerous awards and accolades, showcasing his deep understanding of the human psyche. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Nidhi to take the session forward.
Thank you very much, MS. A very warm welcome to everyone, and warmest welcome again to Dr. Nadkarni here, who's happily joined us today for a second session after a very successful session that we had earlier this year with one of our other chapters. So, Dr. Nadkarni, while we are talking about digital screen time, I think it's apt to say that perhaps it's only because of these digital screen time and gadgets that we are able to connect with you and have so many of our colleagues join in from different locations globally. Uh, However, just to kickstart the session, do you think it has become a necessary evil, the digital time that we have?
A very, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are. And it's nice to be amongst you all after some gap. And this time we are going to talk about a topic that is there on everybody's lips nowadays. And Nidhi, as you rightly put it, when anything new has come and has become the order of the day in human history, there have been concerns, and mainly by parents. Parents is a very, very oversensitive group in the entire community. Always. When the first television came, parents were concerned. When the television became colored, parents were concerned. When movies became order of the day, parents were concerned. With internet spreading, parents were concerned. So, parental concern throughout the world on any particular issue that has attraction power has been very consistent across generations. What that means is that we all as parents are very, very concerned about the screen time. And the other simile in the history of mankind is that people started addressing this problem, so-called problem, with children in the frame of reference to find later on that they are perhaps more entrenched and more gulfed by the problem than children. So let us keep the historical context at the beginning of our chat in a proper place. Now let's come to reality. Now, as you very rightly said, screen becoming an inevitable part of our life has brought in certain advantages and certain disadvantages. So that is the fact of life. As you very rightly pointed out, that we all would not have met across continents today had there not been a technological advance. Yesterday, I was talking to some parental group in Australia. I was there is a community event on 29th in one city of Maharashtra, which we are organizing. And yesterday, I had an online musical rehearsal with my musical choir group there. All this would not happen without technology. So we need to see when is the use to be called use, when abuse, and when dependence. And I many times refrain from using the word screen addiction. And I feel that screen obsession is a better one. Why? Because across the world in medical model, when you use the word addiction then it is generally presumed that abstinence has to be there. When suppose a person who is dependent on alcohol, narcotics comes to me, then abstinence is the first thing that that person has to utter, which is not possible with screens. So why call it addiction? We'll call it obsession. It is more realistic because we want to tone down the obsessive quality in our viewing. We don't want to refrain from using the screen. So obsessive quality is toned down. That is our goal, not to stop use of screen. Now, generally what happens in families is the basic policy of families only revolves around abstinence.
Right.
Everybody tells the kids and elders and even senior citizens that mobile aside and then talk. So others don't do anything else. So we will definitely address some of the strategies which will lead us to a rational use of the screen. Now let us first define what is rational use. And to define that, I'm going to start with a very simple way of understanding the use of screen. Look at my palm. My palm means the mandatory use of screen. So this is what you cannot escape, right? You are in office or you are in school. You cannot escape this. This is the palm. And the five fingers is the voluntary aspect of screen use, where I can choose.
Mm.
So we have divided this mandatory aspect, voluntary or optional aspect. Now there are five fingers. This finger means time pass, just for time pass. What are you doing? I'm looking at the screen, right? Second, but that's a very important use, time pass. If you go to a railway station, airport, bus station, you see many people just doing this, right? Second use is called socialization. There have been groups of people from this college, people from this batch. There have been family groups, and people use screen for socialization. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, etc., etc. So socialization. Here also comes that the communication of socialization. I had been to this place last week. So I put my photographs and that I wait for likes. That is socialization. The third is entertainment. Entertainment means at the end of the day, I want to go and want to see something which is light, something which will entertain my mind. It could be a thriller, it could be a spy story, it could be a comedy, whatever, entertainment. These three are most common. Now let's come to 4 and 5 that are important in our model. Number 4 is called edutainment. What is edutainment or edutainment depends on how you pronounce. Edutain means it's educational, but at the same time attractive and entertaining. Common examples, some of the series say on National Geographic, which are edutainment, means they will educate and they will take your, say, BBC Nature. So some of these things are not entertainment, but they are edutain. So when you see all those things, your understanding also increases. So edutainment becoming a very important arm, and along with this comes the thumb. That is education not related to your domain. Education not related to this domain. For example, I am working in mental health, but I am a student of history. Then, for my passion of history, I am using internet. That is my education, but it is not domain education because the domain education is on the palm, not on the finger. Now you see something very interesting that the movement with these two fingers they meet each other. These three can stand aside. So I call this the modern screen mudra. In yoga abhyas, there are mudras in the Indian school of yoga. So this is a screen mudra where edutainment, education need to meet. These three will stand aside. Otherwise, what will happen? They will come in and then these three can overpower these two. So if I remember that these three should overpower these two, if these two are aligned, then these three will stand apart. That is our screen policy. When these three become so important that these two suffer, then that is abuse. When these three stand apart and these two keep on meeting each other, it is constructive use. This is very easy to understand and practical because we need to have a model which even kids can understand. And that is why this is a simple model that anybody can understand. And we also come to know what we are going to encourage and what we are not going to encourage. But we are not neglect these three either, because these three also are legitimate needs of human beings. Time pass is also legitimate need. So is entertainment and so is socialization. So I'm not saying that we are against them, but we want to distance them and we want to keep them apart from this. So that is policy that we have. Now, look at a very, very important aspect. Edutainment and education, no, help you to widen your horizons. Widen your horizons in terms of your thinking, in terms of your emotions, and in terms of a constructive action. So that is why this is a constructive use of screen. These three, they do not exactly help you to widen your horizons. There are WhatsApp universities, but they do not widen your horizons, right? They actually restrict your horizon, correct? So that is something which is very, very important. What widens your horizons in terms of thinking, emoting, and behavior, and what restricts. Also, what makes you self centered and what makes you others and all centered. If your screen use is making you exclusively self centered, then you are going towards abuse. When I say self centered, I mean that I'm creating a closet around me, almost unimpregnable for others to pierce. So, if that happens, then I am becoming very, very centripetal. I am becoming very, very self centered. If the screen helps me bond with others, if the screen helps me one with many others for a meaningful conversation as well as meaningful emotional bonding, then it is a constructive use. But I keep on seeing the reels and I have decided that I will see before I go to bed 5 reels and I end up with 50, then that is not constructive use. So if we are very clear on these fundamentals, that this is constructive use, this is abuse, then it becomes easier for us to understand and to modulate our behavior accordingly. Didi.
Very interesting, when you say what is abuse and what is constructive use of it. Uh, a lot of times, really, it's not just children, it's not just parents, but all of us in general. We kind of feel that line getting blurred between constructive use and abuse, and limiting or stopping somewhere gets very difficult for us. How do you propose that we consciously make an attempt to do that?
Yes. I call this as screen rationality. So, for screen rationality, we require some anchoring words or anchoring themes. As we were discussing a little while ago, a constructive goal. If my screen takes me to a constructive goal, then the use is rational. Second, the screen is not deteriorating my health, then it is constructive. So, first is goal, second is health. Now, for example, I am on my bedside, and I'm seeing the screen till the time my eyes can't remain open, then that is not going to be proper use. Generally, all the authorities have said that at least half an hour or 1 hour before you go to sleep, you should end your use of screen for that day, unless it is very, very mandatory for you, somebody like a doctor on an emergency duty or something like that, where you have to put your screen as active in an active mode. For the rest of us, that should be a norm, because there has to be a gap between screen closure and eye getting finally relaxed. That gap has to be there. So, health. I mean, on health, one can go on elaborating, right from eyes to mind, everything. But the key word is health. The third is my comfort with myself. This is very important. That if I seek screen as the only comfort, you have used the right word, pacifier. Hmm. So if I see my only comfort in screen, the only self comfort in screen, then that is a problem. If I look at screen as one of the means of having comfort with myself. See, I'm not against you going for or looking at likes or how many comments have come. When I put a post, I'm a very active user of social media. So when I put a post on social media, I have a urge to see how many people have seen, how many people have given their contact, comments. I'm very much there to see. But what I've done is that I have given it a time in my itinerary. That suppose I a post in the morning, I will see the feedback 12 hours after putting. So what happens is 12 hours is a good time, no? Whatever I am going to get the responses, 60%, 70% first 12 hours. And then what happens is after 2 to 3 days now, you will not even go to your own post again.
It's
It
very
is
funny because it contradicts the very law of social media, really, that it has to be instant, it has to be immediate. And when you say do not look at them for 12
now,
hours,
now, now see, huh? Because the social media is like a advertisement to television. They would want you to buy that immediately. Hmm. Because social media is there to make us use it more and more. That is where the discussion is to come. That I want to get feedback on my post. Isn't it natural? Suppose I put something, then I need to work for myself the feedback pattern, rather than I every half an I'm looking at the screen. Oh, how many? Oh, how many? Then using that as the only source of comfort. I mean, it is becoming more dependent, correct? So my point is, it can be one of the sources of comfort for me, no problem, right? But the abuse comes. I mean, this is very, very common for anything and everything that you have in the consumer culture. We have converted everything into an object. We have converted services into object. We have converted everything, even emotions, into objects. Right. So the media, social media, will go in its way because it is a part of the consumer culture. I need to have my discrimination. So the third is comfort with self. Four, If the screen use helps me to build up relationships, professional, social, family, but it helps to build relationship. Okay, rationally. Hmm. That it helps me to be amongst my colleagues for good give and take of information with friends, with family members. Anyway, it fosters relationships. Good, right? So, goal, which is a constructive goal, health, self comfort, relationships, and five. If my screen use stimulates productivity and creativity within, then it is a good use. For example, I am I do my sketching and I put my sketches in on the social media. And many times I get feedback that I got very inspired by your sketches and that I will start sketching. Yes, that's a good thing. No, I have inspired somebody to draw, which is something for development of that person. I have been creative, I have been productive, right? So I have used this part, right? Or suppose, which is another habit of mine, that whatever books I am reading, I would write post on the books that I am reading. So people know that these are the books, and some of them would be interested. Some of them would get into the action of buying a book or getting it, reading it on Kindle or somewhere. That is what that productive and creative use of screen, right? So I am using screen for the creative and productive use. Suppose I work in the field of mental health and there is something that is very important happening in my field. And if I share that on screen, that is that use. Now, these five things are mutually exclusive. Huh? Suppose mental health is my goal. I want to also have relationships with others and I want to be creative and productive. All these three can come. So these five are not mutually exclusive. But these five are the arms of screen rationality. And keeping in our awareness is very important. That these are the five arms, and this is what we would like to keep it in our mind and also imbibe them on all the members of our, as you said, very right. As adults, we are also abusing the screen, possibly more than children. And very importantly, children look at us as role models, right? Small kids, 4 years, 5 years, they look at their father shaving. So, in such an action, such as shaving, also the children look at us, how my father is shaving. So they are definitely looking at us and picking up our habits. So that would be a very important point that all of us also have to look at us as role models. I'm talking about adults. Because who is supposed to have discrimination? Who is supposed to have? As adults, we are supposed to have discrimination more than the kids, isn't it? So these are the five arms of what I call as screen rationality. Nidhi.
So I like the way you put across, Dr. Nadkarni, screen rationality and talking about the various arms of social obsession and not addiction. I'm refraining from using the word addiction here.
Good, good, good.
However, there are multiple facets of our lives where we cannot do without the screens. And one of the facets that comes to fore, and especially since we are also here on behalf of parents, is that parents, because they're working, they want to complete their work, whether professional or personal at home. And the easiest way to not have children obstruct their work is to hand a screen to them. Whether it's a
Yeah,
toddler or it's a teenager, it's pretty much the same. But what happens is that when we start doing this, it may be a comfort for us at that point in time. But somewhere down the line, it starts to become a little irritating for us as individuals because our children are glued to the screens. And at the same time, we do not know what to do about it, because the response when you ask slightly older children would be that, oh, but you're also glued to your screens all day. So
Yeah,
how do you suggest we maneuver through a situation like this?
very important thing, Nidhi, is that the screen discipline has to be imbibed in first 5 years of life, and that is very important. Now there are the American Pediatric Association, the European Pediatric Association. All pediatric associations have come up with their own norms. Generally, if you team up the norms of all the psychological associations and child development associations, there is a uh, there is an understanding or a common understanding on these things. And uh, two, three things which are very common and very important is, you do not have to give the small screen of Android in the hand of a child till the child completes. Some people say 3.5, some people say 4 years. Right? Number one. Number two, that the big screens such as television screen or a big computer screen is to be used only after 1.5 years of age. So some norms are there for 12 months, some norms are there for 18 months. But no one tells that you need to have screen in first year of your life. Now that is something which is very, very important. And why I'll tell you, because the children today have such a strong information processing capacity that if you give them screen in the very first year of their journey on this earth, before they know that there are important attractive options, they only get glued to this. I have seen a 7 or 8 month old kid in a restaurant where that kid knew the sense of him, means he was somebody, and on the screen he was looking his own photographs and smiling, and he knew how to roll at the age of 7 months, 8 months. So that is something which is absolutely detrimental to the child emotional health. Too early introduction of screen, and all bodies in the world are united on this, that the first year on this earth has to be screen free. So at least now we need to really work on it. 1.5, 2 years, you introduce the child to a big screen, but with, they have given 45 minutes, 1 hour. Nobody has given more than 120 minutes. No norms. Say 2 hours in a day. Generally, the norm says 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 80 minutes. Nowhere. Why? Because in toddler state, the child is to explore the hand and feet, right? The child needs to explore the surroundings. Developmentally, that is a very, very important need at that point, right? Now, what is important is that after the age of 4, how to introduce the small screen. See, small screen gets introduced according to schooling. Then what happens is it becomes part of the palm. Something getting introduced as part of the palm always comes with rules. Who doesn't follow the fingers? Hmm. So the small screen and then the screens, they become part of this. Then you start introducing the fingers. That is a very, very important point. And what is another important point is that if you use it as a pacifier, then as a parent, I am wasting one bonding opportunity, right? Which have been used. Now all parents will ask, Acha, you are telling me not to give screen, but then to give what? Right? Actually speaking, to distract your kid or to shift his attention from not interfering with your work, there is no dearth of activities in the house. Only thing is, generally children like the objects that we people do not want them to touch. For example, a child fascinated with a broom, the child would get fascinated with utensils. So these things that they are fascinated, they may not come in your standards of cleanliness. They may not come in your own standards of play material. But give them that there is no dearth of such attractive objects in any house. But we are concerned about this will break, this will fall, this is not for children. Children will not touch it. With that, we refrain from giving them some of the most attractive objects that they would like to play with. So that is something that can work out as children that that would be very, very important. So my point is that we can use it as an excuse. So we need not. Let's see what are the alternatives that we can use. I'll do one thing. I'll shift to another this thing because there is a feedback of people.
Yep.
Uh, the only problem is that this one is my mobile, so
I
I
think
shouldn't
I
get.
think Dr. Nadkarni, now your voice is fine. It's just perhaps when you are away from the screen that the voice starts breaking. That's what I'm assuming here.
Okay, okay. Now I'm very close to the screen now, and I'm not changing my headspace. So
So
okay,
I think you have already answered a couple of questions that we had received in advance on, how do you engage toddlers and infants without screen time? Now, there are so many things that one can do, but apparently the screen is the easiest because you don't have to do any cleaning up after that, right?
I'll give you one tip for a toddler or 4, 5, 6 year child if our audience has. Make it a habit for your children to give them options. Always, huh? Not only in screen, always, even in breakfast, even in the tiffin that they are carrying, even the selection of their clothes. Give them options always. Would you like to have this green t-shirt or this gray shirt? No, I want red. If the child says, today the choice is between these two. Choose. So if you use small choices for your children to do, that helps you not only in general discipline, but also in screen discipline. I have a 4-year-old grandson in my home, and my daughter has worked diligently on his screen habits. So at the age of 4, this person has very limited use of screen, and as a result of that, he's very playful. So one of the strategies that she uses is that she gives him these two fingers and says, "This is this option. This is this option. You choose." So first, what he used to do, he used to choose very impulsively. But as she persisted and explained to him the choices, he started using that for his thinking. And very interestingly, now when he wants her to do something, switch two fingers. Mama, I want to give you these two choices. Now that is very interesting, which means that the child has started thinking. He's thinking on choices. Because unless you start thinking about choices, how will you make one? If you give something as an exclusive choice forever, we are not actually doing justice to the child, teaching the child to have choices. And that is a very, very interesting and important point. And what is very, very important is that my daughter, who stays in a joint family, had to convert her in-laws to her rules. She had to convert all the home helps who are there and with whom the child is very popular. So if you don't show screen, they will. So
Right.
all the domestic helps and everything she had to take on one page. But she did that on priority basis. And now, she's kind of seeing the difference in the child, because the child has got a lot of interest in reading. The child has got a lot of interest in painting. So the child now knows there are different aspects of gaining his attention. That is something is very important for all of us as parents, helping our kids to decide, and for that, before that, to form choices. Didi.
I think very interesting point here, and Lindsay has added into the comments here that sometimes as parents we have to ensure that our children are entertained all the time, and screen time becomes a part of it. But then there are parenting guys that say that we need to let our children get bored, because when that's what happens is when they start using their mind more creatively and imaginatively.
That we want them to get focused on activities that we want them to get focused
But Dr.
on.
Nadkarni, what happens is, and to the point that Lindsay has made and Pranita has also supported, is that we don't we might want the child to get bored and use their imagination, but children today are so used to or accustomed to screens or getting things immediately, not just the screen but getting things what they want immediately, that there is absolutely no patience and no abstinence really from anything that they want, wherein we don't let boredom set at all. Where How do you make, not just children, even for adults, if there's nothing to do, you're scrolling away. How do you try and control this urge of
Mhm.
just keeping the screens away and doing something which is more constructive? I understand choices, but not everyone at all times can practice the concept of choice here.
That's right. I'm not demanding any kind of perfect application of anything. We are all human beings and we will all have our errors. My point is that let us have norms and try to stick to those norms as far as we can. I'll give you one more norm. Whenever there is a precedence for direct communication, the screen needs to be sidelined. Now, that can be a situation in a family, that can be a situation in my clinic when I am talking to patients. Wherever your direct communication is a priority, the screen's priority has to come down. So that is a norm. Now, for example, suppose there is an offline training in a corporate organization like yours, then people will that you put your screens on silent for these 1.5 2 hours. Why? Because that direct communication has to have a priority number one. In social situations also, wherever direct communication is my priority, then I need to stick to getting the screen of the priority. But I have personal time. The direct communication is not a priority. I'm waiting for somebody or waiting uh, for a train. Then possibly screen. So my point is that the norms have to be there, that where direct communication precedes over screen communication. Sometimes screen communication will have to be preceded. I mean, we'll have to give importance to screen communication also. For example, now that I am talking and you are listening, we are giving priority to screen communication. And at this time, all other screens and the direct communications we have kept aside for a while. So
Right.
now that prioritization in me as robust. every time. Let's understand our human fallibilities and human vulnerabilities, right? There will be some people who will find it very, very difficult to control that urge of seeing the screen and not using it. Okay. Now, rather than complete abstinence, can I limit the duration of my screen? Can I limit? Suppose I take it now. Can I limit my duration? Work on it. Can I work on the frequency? How many times in a hour I'm taking this machine in my hand, right? I can work on duration. I can work on frequency, and I can work on you know how exclusively I'm going to use this. So exclusivity, frequency, and duration. These are the three things that if I'm not able to focus, I have succumbed to my urge. But still, also, if I have succumbed to my urge, can I shift to these two rather than these three? I have started with these three. I have succumbed to the urge. But can I change now? Hmm? So my point is flexibility. My point is realization, awareness of our five things: goal, health, self comfort, relationship, productivity, and creativity. Then it is a process for me. And according to personalities, according to people, it can have the graphs, the overall direction graph should be similar, is the only thing that I am saying.
You had mentioned in one of our conversations earlier, when we caught up, uh, about this and the concept of screen ethics. Would you want to elaborate on the screen
Right.
ethics?
The screen ethics means the norm which has to be given as precedence. Now, suppose there is a surgeon who is performing surgery. He will have to give precedence to his surgery. I mean, he will use the screen, but to see where his scope is going.
Right.
Suppose he is the endoscopic surgeon. So he will be screen, but the screen use will be very good for his goal, and that is why he is using the screen. So, a endoscopic surgeon during surgery seeing the screen for his endoscope is proper use because that is fulfilling our norms, right? But suppose the endoscopic surgeon, he should not get it in my hypothetical situation. He gets an urge and says, now the surgery can wait. Let me go for a while on Insta and see how many likes I have got. That is not appropriate, correct? So ethics is this, that whenever suppose I am talking to a client, I'm talking to a patient, then there is this exclusive emotional space between me and that individual. That is a space of our direct communication. Now, during that time, none of us should give precedence to screen. It has to come like that. It has to come from that person and it has to come from me, from both of us, right? So these are called the norms, the ethical norms by which I will use this. So when I use the screen ethics, what I do is I respect my space and I also respect the other person's space and I also respect the common space. Now, family space is a common space. So family space is a common space, isn't it? So in that common space, there has to be a interval where people are using that space only for direct communication. Now, see, if you do that on a negative, in a negative way, that next half an hour, no member of the family will use any screen. Let us come together and chat. Then everybody will come together and there will be no chatting, there will be only silence. Why? Because you have so creatively. We'll have to see that in a common family space, if I don't want people to use screens, then I will have to make that space doubly attractive.
Yeah.
So let us work on making family space more attractive by using some direct stimulations that somebody is eating, somebody is singing, somebody is laughing, somebody is doing something. Let's make it attractive. No, let's make that as a story hour. Let's make that as a song hour. Let's make that as a joke hour. Whatever. Or eating something in common. Why not make that family space attractive so people for a while will prioritize that space over screen?
Mm.
Many times, as parents, especially with teenagers, we complain, we go on complaining that, oh, this teenager comes, says hi, hello, and then goes. That space is not attractive for that teenager. That teenager, this is my space. So, a feeling of belongingness for that common family space, if it is not there, then how can only negativity work? Isn't it? So that is very important as family. If we want to get people together, then the interactions have to be attractive and between generations. Why those interactions don't become attractive, because generally generations have a tendency to use the common family space for being judgmental. Ah. And so surpassed. People are waiting for family space to be judgmental. He behaved like that, he's like that, she's like that. That is not the definition of family space that I'm talking. That family space has to be non-judgmental and all accepting. That is the family space that I'm talking about. So who will take lead in creating that family space? If parents start, children or the younger generation will definitely put in their creativity to make it more active. Now, that is something that has to be taken as a family developmental project, not as something which is negative. It should add fun. We talk about quality time, quality time, quality time, no, all the time. This is the way to really create quality time. So, this is something that we need to understand in our relationships. That if there is a quality time, barring screen time, then that's fine. Also, for these two purposes, the edutainment and education, and some extent for entertainment also, we can also have common viewing time. Why not have common viewing time? Why should everybody be in each one's screen? There has to be something which has to be watched together. Not only watched together, but after that episode or whatever is over, there is a feedback.
Mm.
It's not that now that episode is over, everybody goes. Now somebody has to anchor a conversation after that. Why not have a kind of a norm that who anchor what today, right? So something that needs to make even our common viewing more active rather than only passive, correct? Which is also a very important point that we are not against screen. No, we are not any of these five fingers. People need time pass also. People need entertainment also. But some of it can be definitely common. Is something that we should also look at. Nidhi?
Sure, thank you. I think there are so many points that I had, but you've covered them in your multiple conversations and examples. I'm mindful of the time. We have just about 4 minutes, and I would want to open the forum and ask if there's anyone who's on the call and has a question to ask Dr. Nadkarni. Please feel free. And if not, then I'm going to ask Dr. Nadkarni to share or say summarize our entire conversation on
Yeah.
how screens are not to be pacifiers or what are the best practices that one can use to keep away from screens all the time, not keep away at all, but keep away from it, using it all the time, really. In say, if you have to summarize it in say top 3 points that
Yeah,
you would give,
the first important point is that screen is a material and you are the viewer. So first is distinction, that screen is one of the materials that is going to interact with your mind and intellect. It's a material, it's a means, it is not an end. Very important. Because if your screen use becomes an end, then you are more likely to end with an obsession. So, screen is a material, it provides you a medium, it is a means, it is not the end. Number one. Number two, you have two sets of eyes. I mean, those people who wear glasses, they have three, but, but you have two sets of eyes. What we call as the vision given by the optic nerve, which all of us see. That is a common vision. And we also have something that is our power of interpretation. Correct? Many times, what happens is that during screen time, without interpreting, we go on viewing. So, while viewing, continue to interpret. While viewing, continue to discriminate. And that is what in Sanskrit, that is the antardrishti. And there is a bahya drishti, that is your vision given to all of us by nature. So, if your discrimination, if your inner vision is aware, then you will not only view, you will continuously interpret. Now, whenever you are interpreting, what will you use? You will use our 5 points of rationality. That is a help for us for interpretation. Correct? Now, the third and or the next point is that if I have to shape my day-to-day screen routine, then I will use the mudra as a guideline. This is not a one-time activity. This is something which I will have to do dynamically over a period of time. Suppose a holiday, this will be very different. Suppose I'm very much near a test or an exam or something, these 5 will be very different. So it is a dynamic review that I need to take of how I am using the screen. Next point, that it is very important to use screen as a source to widen my horizons and not to make me self-absorbed. If I am going towards self-absorption, then I am not going towards development. So, if I'm using screen for edutainment education, that is widening my horizon, widening my knowledge, then that is the rational use of the screen. If I am becoming an island, then that is not the rational use of the screen. Next point, I should not say that I am perfect in anything. And therefore, let us all be very, very reflective on our own screen behaviors. If we are able to discriminate that here I am doing it a little more, that is the time to change or work on your own interpretation. For that, again, our 5, the goal, health, self comfort, relationships, productivity, creativity can be our guidelines. And next point, that whether we all like it or not, screen is going to be with us, right? And it is going to be after us also. So we will have to find out ways of a symbiotic relationship with the screen. what is required is not too much of friendship and too much of animosity, and the middle lies in symbiosis, where I use the screen and I contribute to the screen as well. And how can I contribute more responsibly to the screen is very important part of my screen ethics, that I will not use the screen to spread rumors, misconceived notions, and ignorant bits of information, which is a very important part of my screen use. So I think it has already become a long list, but uh, it's enough homework for the day.
But I think we have some very interesting takeaways, and I don't need to summarize them because you've done them so aptly. I want to say is thank you so very much, Dr. Nadkarni. We did have a few audio issues here and there, but we did have some very interesting insights from you, and I'm sure not just as parents, but even as individuals, working professionals, we are all going to have some takeaway today to take back and adapt in our lives. So, thank you so very much. And thank you, everyone, for being here till the very end. Thank you so much.